Good afternoon, everyone. I think we'll get going. So thank you very much for joining Digital in Drinks 2022 today. Start of March, not quite the start of the year, but a lot of opportunities this year for increased digitalization within the drinks industry. And there's a lot that we have to play for in the year ahead. Thank you for attending. We run this report every year, and we have done for the last few years, looking at how digital influences the drinks industry. During COVID, of course, there was a huge change, disruption, but also a lot of opportunities for growth and shifting business models and rising sort of e-commerce and D2C, and that has sort of changed the industry quite significantly, and we're now sort of coming out of that era and into a really interesting space where digital is taking sort of center stage within the drinks industry. So my name's John Reay. I'm founder of Rewrite Digital, and we work with a lot of clients within the drink space in particular, helping them to keep the pace of digital change, which is very hard to keep on top of because it keeps changing. But that's what we're here to help our clients do. And if you just go to the next slide on here, we've got a panel this afternoon that I'm very pleased to introduce. I'm going to spend about 15 minutes running through some of the findings from the report this year that you will get a copy of in full. But we're going to discuss some of the sort of themes that have come out today with Luke Boase from Lucky Saint, founder of what I would quite happily say is the best non-alcoholic beer I've tried, and I've tried quite a few, and it really does shine above the rest. And they've done quite a lot in the digital space, so very pleased to have Luke on board today. We've got Kristen from Toast Ale, who looks after the marketing and comms side and sort of social media and different elements of the sustainable beer toast that we're going to hear a little bit more about later. We've got Eric Singleton, who's CEO and co-founder of StraxAR, which is an app that you can scan any media, any logo, any label from a drinks bottle or can, and activate some sort of digital experience. Again, we'll be hearing a bit more about that later. And I've got Liam Hirt, co-founder of Still In Cask and Psychopomp and Circumstance distillery. So again, we're going to be hearing a little bit more from him. We were going to have a fifth panelist today, Darius from Chateau Darius, who have launched an NFT wine. Unfortunately, he's been taken to hospital, so he's unable to join us today, but we wish him a speedy recovery. So I'll move swiftly on, and we'll come back to the panel shortly after this introduction piece. So we've done this year's drinks report with contributors from around the drinks industry, from big players like Pernod Ricard, AB InBev, Distell, through to smaller breweries and drinks producers across the UK and globally as well. So we've had a wide range of contributions to this report. What we've found really this year is that digital has moved from where we saw things last year, that digital had been sort of highlighted as essential for survival and for sort of getting through COVID and being able to operate at times when bars and other activities were not available. through to this year now looking at digital being central to every drinks brand's strategy, and it being recognized as a leading influencer or the leading influencer of growth for drinks companies. So there has been this huge shift over COVID, where previously there were a lot of companies, businesses, and leadership within those organizations that were not fully brought into digital and the influence that it can bring. That's completely shifted as a result of COVID. You know, an acceleration that was happening anyway, but really it's come to the fore during this time that digital is absolutely central to growth, and that's what we've seen, and that's what is really exciting about the year ahead. So if you go to the next slide, what we've taken from the survey was that digital maturity continues to rise. 86% of those surveyed within the industry, and this is an industry study, it's not consumer study, this is from stakeholders within the industry, 86% saying their digital maturity has gone up slightly or significantly in the last year. And the year before we did this report, it was 78% saying that digital maturity had gone up slightly or significantly. And 64% have said significantly that it has gone up. So there is this sort of overriding sense that digital is increasing, and it's continuing to increase each year. What we are seeing though is that this sort of growth perhaps is not sustainable in sort of the way that we have been seeing it. Even though things are rising, are they plateauing? Are we reaching a sort of limit where digital maturity is not sort of increasing at the same levels? This is something which we're really hoping to sort of get a better view on as we go into this year. But the fact that digital maturity is rising and continuing to rise is a sort of key finding there. Do you go to the next one? What I want to sort of tell you about for this year, which is a bit different. Last year we did a survey that we sent out to the industry to complete. What we're now doing is having a live sort of real-time index for digital maturity and effectiveness. So any brand, and you will be able to do this yourselves once this is made available later this week. You'll be able to get a score for your drinks business and see how that matches up to the rest of the sector. You'll be able to see over time how that digital maturity and effectiveness score is changing, and you can come back and benchmark to see where you are, where the rest of the sector is at any point in time, and see the split down different areas of digital, how you are faring. So this is a real sort of shift that we're seeing from an annual survey to a real-time ongoing benchmarkable index, and that's what I'm really excited about sort of making available to all of you after this. To go to the next slide, what I wanted to do is pull out a few examples of innovation that we've seen in the last 12 months. So this first one, and we're going to see a little bit more about this technology or an example of this technology later, but QR codes have sort of exploded unexpectedly in the last couple of years, but it's not particularly sort of brand friendly, having a code that you have to stick on a label or in some other space on an ad or what have you. What this technology here does from Strax is allow you to scan any logo, label. It doesn't have to be a code like a QR code, and it will activate some experience. something that is augmented reality, or a video or a link off to something. And we're actually running a competition as part of this session today that I'll tell you a little bit more about in a minute, using the StraxAR app, so you can try it out for yourselves. Next one is NFT wine, and as I say, unfortunately we don't have Darius here today, but Chateau Darius, a very sort of traditional small wine estate in France, had launched an NFT wine for each of its harvests, and this is something that has a physical element to it as well as a digital element. So if you're not familiar with NFTs, it's essentially a digital product that people spend an awful lot of money on, that has value in its own right and is a unique item, and gets auctioned for millions of dollars and so on, and a lot of cryptocurrencies. But what Chateau Darius have done is combined a digital product with a physical product, so you actually get a wine that is exclusive. It is only the one available or limited edition available, and you get a digital sort of souvenir or token attached to that as well. Darius would be able to describe it a little bit better, but yeah, that's a good example, and we've seen a lot of NFT launches coming out from drinks companies in the last 12 months. Next slide. So this is Liam, who's on the panel today. Still In Cask is a really interesting way of launching whiskey or any kind of spirit that needs to mature. So you've got a cask of liquid here that takes a number of years to mature, and the traditional model is that all gets bottled up eventually and sold in bottles. But the idea here is that you can take a share of that cask and invest in it to then wait until it matures, and then when it matures you can choose what you want to do with it, sell it off or get it in the bottles. Again, Liam can talk more about this, but it's a really interesting way of challenging the business model that we're all used to in drinks, and using digital to empower that. Next one, this is Ripples. We featured Ripples in previous reports, but there's a lot of innovation going on here. This is a product that sits in the on-trade on bars, and it works really well with a pint of Guinness, but also with cocktails, and a lot of other drinks, coffees are now employing this technology. But you can essentially print something on the drink, and this technology is now sort of evolved to the point where it's much more of a self-serve operation. It was previously something that a bartender would sort of manage and do for you, but you can take a selfie and print it on your drink, watch it all being scanned in, choose patterns and backgrounds and filters, and the whole thing is super Instagrammable. So really interesting technology that adds a huge amount of value to that on-trade experience. And the last one, is perhaps not innovative in certain ways, but it's a really good use of different technologies. So this is beer in different countries in Africa that was tastes good when it's cold. So the idea is that to get a cold beer, you have to find a shop with a decent fridge and keeping at a decent temperature, but it costs a lot of money to do that. So there's a bit of a marketplace thing here, where if you make a colder beer, you're more likely to be able to sell it because it's a better product. but it costs more to do that. So they introduced a sort of model that was tied to advertising hoardings and so on, that tracked the temperature of the fridges in real time. So you could see where the nearest fridges were that sold this beer and the temperatures that they were at. And based on sort of how cold you want this beer, that would determine the sort of market sales that beer would attract and the attention that it got in the media. So a really good sort of fusion of digital and non-digital media going into that. So there's one final one, which is an interesting sort of new model, attempting to find ways in which people can engage in perhaps a meeting up on trade experience, but doing it from home. So Neighbourly created a way in which you can buy a round of drinks, but you can have it with your mates who might live in all sorts of different places in the world. So you buy a round of drinks for the FA Cup final, for example. Everybody gets delivered their beers. You all have the beers at the same time and watch the cup final and have a virtual experience together. It sounds quite clunky, and it's like, well, why don't you just go to the pub? But the idea of finding ways in which people can experience things together, but not necessarily in the same place, I think is a huge area for growth. And there's going to be a lot more of this type of thing coming to fruition. So just finishing up on a few sort of other elements of the report that came out, we asked the contributors about the top challenges that are facing them or they've been facing over the last 12 months. Supply chain and operational limitations have been a huge challenge for producers and distributors, anyone in the trade. Lack of dedicated resource, going into sort of staffing challenges. These are all very well sort of understood challenges that have been in place the last year. But there are other elements to lack of a clear strategy from a digital perspective, not necessarily knowing sort of where to focus, and cost still in there, but a lot lower than previously in terms of the priority of challenges. So it's really those sort of supply issues, staffing issues have had an impact, and prevent the growth of digital that you might have otherwise experienced. D2C absolutely dominates. A lot of the businesses that we've surveyed have gone through very high growth in D2C and overall for their sales, and put more of an attention on direct to consumer offerings. So this is clearly a key part of any digital strategy, and where there's growth for digital for drinks producers. Next slide. There are a lot of innovators within the drinks industry and outside the drinks industry that are doing interesting things from in a direct to consumer context. You've got Drop Wine that deliver wine to parks and other kind of venues where you might actually want a drink, but you're not at an address like an office or a home. You've got Bloom and Wild, which is really challenged the whole model on flower delivery and finding ways in which that consumer experience, both from the buyer and the receiver of the flowers, can be can really sort of make a difference. You've got Good Club that are looking at sustainable products and how to find a way to make delivery sustainable, because it's a big elephant in the room really about delivering lots of products direct to people's homes is, on the face of it, is not the most sustainable model. But we might come back to Kristen on that about how Toast looks at that. And you've got businesses like Pizza Hut and so on trying to make more of a digital experience with with their products. So this is a Pac-Man AR experience. So lots of different examples inside and outside the drinks industry there. At Rewrite Digital, we've been doing a partnership with the University of West of England on what D2C will mean in years to come. So we are really at the early stages of direct to consumer. I think it's very transactional at the moment. There's not a lot of emotion and experience in it, but there's a lot more to come. And we've been doing this study with Reay last year with the brands shown there, including Toast, and we're doing the same thing again this year. So we're sort of filtering some of the outputs of that into these reports. The metaverse, have to mention the metaverse because everyone does at the moment. It's attracting a lot of brands, drinks brands getting involved and finding ways in which they can sort of credibly have a role within the metaverse. So this was Miller Lite during the Super Bowl, opening a bar and providing an experience there. I think it's all very experimental at the moment. Nobody really knows where it's going, what to invest in it, but it's certainly a focus for looking at what people are doing in this space. The next 12 months, we see three sort of key areas. One is about audience growth, so whether that's going into new markets, sort of using digital to make that easier to do, or to sort of target new types of customers. A lot of the emerging drinks categories in non-alcoholic, for example, are having to sort of find new audiences and sort of sell a category as well as their own products. New models, finding different ways in which to create a relationship with consumers, whether that's subscriptions, referral schemes, different types of ways to engage. And then that third one is about the amplifying experience from a digital perspective. So, rather than just here's a box of beers delivered to your door, what's the actual experience that you have on top of that from a digital perspective. So we sort of categorized where things are likely to go in these three areas. And sort of leaving with a question, really. This is a campaign that was done in China with hundreds of drones that sort of created an aerial display, and then sort of all went into a QR code at the end. And it seems a bit odd, this, that you invest in such a theatrical experience, and then to sort of bring it to life, you have to sort of make a code that people scan, and then you can see something else based on that. This idea that the QR code is the entry point into some digital experience, I think really can be challenged, and that's where the likes of Strax comes in, and we'll hear more from Eric on that shortly. So I did mention this competition. I will come back to this, but this is open to everybody on this call, and I know some people couldn't make it who did register. They will also have the opportunity to do this, but you can win that collaboration case of 26 beers from Toast. All you need to do is download the StraxAR app. There's a QR code there for iOS and for Android. We will send the links on chat as well shortly, and then you can use the app to scan a can of Toast ale. I have a couple in the background here that I might crack into in a second. What that will do is activate a short video clip and reveal a hidden entry form that you can only get to through this experience. So it's a bit of a challenge to find it, which is exactly the kind of competition I like. because not everybody will do it. But this is your chance to be there to win that case. So I've talked enough. We're going to come back to the panel and discuss some of the findings from the report. But I think it would be first good to just hear from each of the panel here in their own words about who they are and their background. And I think the question I'd just ask to begin with is, what can we look forward to from you and your brand from a digital perspective in the next year? So who wants to kick off? Luke?
Hello.
Hello.
John. Very, very insightful report. I'm Luke. I'm founder of Lucky Saint. We are a dedicated alcohol-free beer brand. We produced one beer. We produced a lager that seems to have had a good reception. Yeah, and thanks for the kind words on it earlier, John. I sort of, I guess, just kind of in answer to your question, like we're at this quite interesting point because the last 2 years have been like so wrapped up in COVID and have been an amazing opportunity for lots of businesses, like Lucky Saint included, to kind of thrive from a D2C perspective and kind of deliver in-home experience. And I guess now, like looking forward, there's so much kind of emphasis now goes back to the on-trade and more traditional places that that drinks have been and are going to be consumed this year. And I think it's interesting to think about, well, what's the amazing stuff that's happened over the last 2 years that we can take back into the real world? What are the habits and what new normals have been created at home which we want to hold on to? And then, I suspect there are some that we're happy to leave behind as well.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Okay. Excellent. Thank you, Luke. Kristen?
Oh, hi, I'm Kristen from Toast Ale. So if you guys don't know Toast, we brew with surplus bakery bread that would have otherwise been wasted. So we use around 25% less malted barley than other beers, which means kind of less impact on the planet. And obviously you're not wasting the bread that would otherwise kind of go into landfill. So we're obviously a very climate conscious brand, fighting food waste. A lot of people don't know that food production itself is the biggest contributor to climate change, because one third of that is wasted. So we're kind of really trying to get our message out about food waste and how people can take kind of climate action. So one thing we were kind of ever conscious of is this issue around greenwashing and brands kind of making claims that can't perhaps necessarily be verified on a pack. So using things like the augmented reality is really, really interesting in that it could take you to a place where you can provide a consumer with more information about perhaps environmental claims. And also, obviously, as you touched on earlier, John, kind of COVID made us all sharpen up our act in terms of how we monitor our digital channels and how slick we are. So again, like kind of updating our website more quickly and being kind of better at communicating with our customers via email has really kind of been an area for growth for Toast that we can continue doing this year.
Great, thank you very much, Kristen. And thank you for donating the companion case for the competition as well, I'll add. Liam.
Hello, thanks for the report, John, that's brilliant. So yeah, I'm Liam, and my two loves are booze and blockchain, I guess, and I work with both of them now, which is wonderful. So we have Circumstance Distillery, which is a whiskey distillery in Bristol. That's organic, carbon neutral, and we're releasing our first whiskey this year in September. There's a few bits out at the moment, but they're still quite young. And the second part of what I do now is Still In Cask, and that's the blockchain bit. When we started Circumstance, we actually funded part of it with a blockchain offering. So instead of going through crowdfunding, where platforms kind of take 10%, we've raised a lot of cash by issuing tokens. And those tokens, we've told anyone who bought the tokens they can exchange them at any point in the future for one of our products. So I'm hoping people come back in 20 years and just go, yeah, 20-year bottle of whiskey, that's great, I'll have one of those. And it was kind of on the back of that we started thinking about other things that we could do better within our whiskey distillery. And the one thing that really stuck out was cask sales, which, although a lot in whiskey has modernized over the years, cask sales has not. And that was very much stuck in the dark ages, with kind of wealthy individuals and syndicates buying casks and enjoying them, watching them mature, and then having them bottled. So we didn't want to take part in that, but we did want to give that kind of experience to as many people as possible. And we decided to do that by taking the cask, chopping it up into 70 centiliter bottle shares, and selling those. And the right mechanism for doing that is on the blockchain, and that's exactly what we did. And we launched in May last year, so we're coming up to a year. It's been slow progress, but we're getting there. And this year, Still In Cask is adding New Zealand. So there's New Zealand distillers coming online this year. There's one in Germany coming on very shortly. There's other spirits coming online like Calvados. And in terms of what we'll be offering over the next year, it's going to be kind of more of the same. And certainly Circumstance as a distillery will be offering a lot more on the blockchain on Still In Cask, and we'll be bringing as many distilleries as we can on board as well.
Excellent. Well, very exciting. Yeah, I don't know what I'm going to be doing with a bottle of whiskey in 20 years. I'll probably want it a lot sooner than that.
Well, a lot of them on the site are kind of 3, 4, 5 years. There's one actually on the site which McMira have put on, the Swedish distillery. It's already 8 years old, so you can get it at the end of the year.
Yeah, well, I think this is where dynamic pricing becomes quite interesting. You know, can you wait 20 years? If you can, there's a good investment there. But if people want it sooner, they can, you know.
Yeah, I mean, if I'm spending £5 on a bottle of whiskey, not including duty and those kind of things, but I have to wait 20 years, that's an interesting question. Yeah.
Yeah. Do you get a lot of gifting rather than people buying it for themselves? It sounds like the sort of thing that. Yeah.
So with the blockchain, you get to hold the asset digitally, and therefore it's perfect for transferring. And there is a lot of gifting. We have a gifting mechanism where you can send it to someone on the site or even somebody off the site. And because it's on a public blockchain, you can access all of that data without going through our site if you so choose to. It becomes a little more complicated that way, obviously, but it's possible. You know, it's your token, right. Whoever you want.
It's all right. No, very interesting. And Eric from Strax, would you like to do a short intro and talk about how you think your technology plays into the drink space?
Sure, John. Thank you. So when we created this product, like a lot of folks here, I guess we had to go through the COVID period, which really accelerated, we thought, a lot of touch points with digital and intimate digital. You know, we envisioned a product where it was pretty personal, actually. We wanted to be able to hold up our device, whatever that device was, phone, a tablet, ultimately a wearable, and look at things and unlock deeper information about those things, whether it was a product or an automobile or a movie screen or a book. And that was kind of our dream and our vision. We sort of wanted that for ourselves. And initially we wanted to source a product and then, build around it. But having been in technology really my entire life, and likewise for my team, we didn't find that product. It didn't exist, and became a bit obsessive for us to proceed. So what we did was we built what we now know as StraxAR, and our entire premise really is to, as John pointed out earlier, is to recognize whether it's an object or a photograph or a logo, or really anything that we kind of tell Strax to recognize, and then unlock a contextually relevant, information element. That could be video, that can be audio. Typically it's video and audio. And then we understood that it was painful to just drop the person off after the cute video experience, because we'd seen a lot of that with prior AR entries. It was more of a novelty than an actual value add to the consumer, or in some cases to the fan. So Strax goes the extra step, provides and unlocks this content, but then redirects the consumer, or again, the fan or the student, to a deeper level of engagement. And that is where there is the opportunity for either an intellectual transaction or a commerce transaction, or something deeper that goes beyond the initial engagement. And, we've learned that provides really the satisfaction of the whole 360-degree experience. So that's a little bit about that. We are a direct-to-consumer communication channel. We are not social media, so we are the anti-social media, if you will. And our goal is really, has been and continues to be, building strong community around brands, artists, and educators. And we've been off to a great start. Really, since the vaccines came and things lightened up a bit, it's been, I think, good for all of us.
Thank you, Eric. And we've just shared that slide again with the competition, which uses the Strax app, so you can try it out for yourselves. You just download the app, and then if you don't have a can of toast behind you like I do, you can scan this picture of a toast can and see the activation and enter the competition. So this is an example of how you can do this, and how this could apply in the drink space is that you could have a toast can or bottle in any space. It can be in a bar, it can be in a supermarket, it can be in someone's fridge, it can be a poster or an ad, and you can scan that and then activate an experience. So huge applications opportunities within the drink space. And thank you, Eric, for joining. I know it's early on in the day from the States. So I'll ask another question, which has been a challenge to consider as a result of the changes that we've all become used to in the last couple of years. What kind of experience can pubs, bars, and restaurants offer to attract people to go out rather than having an at-home experience, and the role that digital can sort of play in that experience that you might have if you do go out? Anyone want to jump in on that?
Not really, but I will say that's something I find quite difficult, because when I think needs to be less intrusive than when you're at home and you're kind of opting in, and certainly when I'm out at a restaurant or a bar or wherever, my phone tends to be off. So I do find that as quite a a challenging space to introduce digital experiences where the experience is kind of about the people that you're with.
Yeah, so it actually it's more relevant in the at-home experience perhaps, and how to create some sort of experience that, I don't know, is different to going out. And as you say, it can often be a more like solitary thing, or not, not needing to sort of be out there and enjoy the venue and the people you're with. Is there anything around that? And I know Luke, from a sort of D2C experience perspective, like he's saying, has really considered everything from the packaging of the box that arrives, and the unpacking of that, and opening that out, that there are physical elements there. But is there anything from a digital perspective that you also are considering in that at-home experience?
I just like on the going out piece, I'm sort of I agree with Liam to some extent. Like I think what people are really excited about are some of the slightly more analog elements of getting back into the real world. But there are some bits I love, like on-app ordering and bill payments that seem to be commonplace now. Absolutely love those as a consumer. And then the other thing that we've seen is around like what they call competitive socializing. So lots of kind of quasi like digital experiences, which I guess there's a kind of blending like piece there where there are digital elements to it, super engaging. We did electric shuffleboard as a team last week, and it was that was great fun. So yeah, I think there's a balance to be had. I think I feel like the consumer and the world sort of wants to cherish some of the things that we're going to wind back, we're going to get back this year that we haven't really had for the last couple.
Yeah.
Yeah, this is Eric here. We've seen very recently, as things open up here, where I live, actually, I live in an area in Northern Virginia, which is dozens and dozens of wineries and uncountable number of craft breweries that are producing their own, their canning and bottling. And a big draw, of course, is to visit the brewery itself and to get with your friends and socialize there. And we're working with two of these places right now. And where Strax has been, I think, a contributor is in the gamification element. They're using Strax with user-generated content, which stitches together their communities that are loyal and follow that brand. And then in one case, two different brands got together. They're friendly with one another, and had a larger event on premise. And there was a lot of discovery and things like that on the logos, the labels, some of the merchandise, and so on. All of these things being unlocked by Strax, and it was really a fun opportunity to strengthen an already developed community of followers of those two brands, and have a laugh and kind of take it home with them as well. So they've been using this digital product to be one of the things that is a thread that has, brought back, at least on several occasions, Saturday night is a game night or Strax night, that sort of thing. Again, it's an interesting start, but for us, we see that as something that could be replicated in many places.
Yeah, there's definitely a lot of interesting areas in which this can go, and finding ways in which people can socialize and have entertainment alongside the drinks and that experience. One thing that we sort of touched on there potentially is around gaming, and I gave the example of metaverse there with the Super Bowl, but the metaverse is still sort of very early on in its sort of inception. But are there any real opportunities, or is it just a playground at the moment? What from a drinks brand perspective, do any of you think that there's any real longevity, any real sort of value here? And are you actually thinking about how to sort of be part of that?
Yeah, John, I think there's real value in it. And what we've seen from a distillery point of view, from a Circumstance point of view, is that a lot of what we did, like everybody else, moved online. But since the lifting of restrictions, particularly with things like tastings, we haven't moved back to in-person tastings. And a lot of people prefer doing those kind of things in their home. And there's lots of reasons for that. So we'd send out kind of tasting packs, and we do the Zoom thing. If we could control more of the environment that they were in, so in the metaverse, and do tastings there, I think that's a step up from where we are at the moment.
Yeah, no, interesting. And I think people are used to doing a lot of virtual, or at least, you know, the sort of hybrid elements. And as a producer, you can cast a much wider net in terms of your audience if you can open up to a virtual audience, or rather than opening up, keeping a virtual audience that we've been used to over the last couple of years. And I know you guys do a lot of that sort of stuff. Kristen, is there anything you think from a Toast perspective, particularly around the sustainability, perhaps?
Well, kind of touching on what Liam was saying, totally agree. So we, during COVID, launched a kind of beer masterclass thing for people to get beer sent to their home, and then we would hold the masterclass online, and we were teaching people about how to taste beer, but also we did a series of beers where we collaborated with other B Corps. So we would get them on board. So we worked on one beer where we worked with Tea Pigs, and they did a tea taste, and we did Divine, and we did Divine Chocolate. And those kind of experiences we didn't get good attendance towards the end of COVID, obviously, because everyone kind of switched a little bit more to going out. But we have continued offering that to kind of more corporate clients as like a way that you could send beer to like your whole team. And if you've got people in Manchester and London, and then you can all come together online. So yeah, being like, as Liam said, being able to offer that in the metaverse would be amazing. But also one of the things which sort of, when I was thinking about this earlier, was that people always like to see like how products are made and behind the scenes, and especially from our perspective, where we're using quite an unusual ingredient in our waste bread. So it'd be great to be able to show people like the full life cycle, or as we call it, the circle of loaf, of how you make a beer from start to finish. And even it might be us crumbing the bread to start, and then something like how a can gets recycled at the end. So just again, going back to that kind of education piece for consumers, I think we're all very aware of climate change, and that we are all going to have to make personal adaptations to save the planet. And education is kind of really, really key around that. And yeah, the metaverse, I think, would definitely offer an opportunity to kind of help people understand perhaps what they need to do to help.
Yeah, no, that education piece is really key. I mean, one question specifically, Kristen, about the sort of sustainability of deliveries, that, you know, D2C, this rise that we talked about, lots more people getting boxes of products delivered to their home rather than going to you know, the supermarket as much, or what have you. You know, how are you tackling that from a sustainability perspective? Are there some interesting angles there that you're looking at?
So yeah, we have done deliveries in the past in London by bike, so that they were kind of zero carbon neutral. We work with DPD, who kind of offset some of their emissions as well. And we also actually, we just launched our impact report today, which is part of our B Corp certification. And as part of that, we looked at a can versus a bottle, which one was more kind of carbon carbon friendly, I suppose, in a way, or which one had the biggest impact. And so cans are much better from a kind of carbon emissions point of view. So one of the things we're kind of going to try and do this year is to move more consumers towards drinking from cans instead of bottles, and also trying to kind of going back, I suppose, to what you were saying about people going out, so working more with pubs and other locations where people can enjoy beer on tap, which is actually the most sustainable way of kind of enjoying a beer. So yeah, trying to kind of be in perhaps some more unusual places and having kind of smaller offerings of beer. And I know kind of the guys from Lucky Saint have done quite a lot in that perspective. So maybe Luke has got a view on it.
We're big proponents of draft. Very exciting area for alcohol-free to be moving into draft. And yeah, I mean, obviously clearly there's a big sustainability benefit there, because there's no packaging to dispose of or recycle. But also from a consumer experience perspective, I think, our beer on draft is the hero experience for our category, without a doubt.
Yeah, well, I'm still waiting to have a draft Lucky Saint, but I'm very looking forward to that. I know it's becoming a lot more available now, and the likes of Heineken have sort of forecast huge percentages of their non-alcoholic drinks being on draft in venues. I mean, just in terms of that on-trade experience, one question that came through was about B2B e-commerce and how you're sort of serving the trade side and how digital is being used for that. I don't know if that sort of factors into all of this, but in terms of managing the stock and different formats and that sort of stuff, and perhaps it plays into sustainability, but also just operationally, changing the way in which that works. Do any of you, in terms of the producers on the panel, have an e-commerce route for the on-trade? You don't at the moment?
No, we use the traditional wholesaler route.
Yeah. Okay. I mean, I know some of the bigger groups are doing a lot more in that space, but okay. So we've only got 5 minutes left. I want to maybe come to a final question about what you expect from the drinks industry in the next year. So what is there a particular area you're interested in, or you think there's going to be a lot of movement, or something that you're really looking forward to that you think is coming up? It would be good just to hear from each of the panelists on that. Whoever wants to jump in first.
I'll cover off maybe what I've just said. I think that for us, like alcohol-free beer on draft remains I think one of the most exciting areas. We're so far behind the rest of the world, or certainly the rest of Europe, in terms of the penetration of alcohol-free beer, and the way in which the UK consumer is used to drinking their beer is on draft. So that that remains like the most exciting thing. That I think we've had a couple of few full starts over the last 24 months with COVID, and now touch wood, I feel like maybe we're out of the woods and can start really sort of planning for full summers of activity. So that's the big one for me.
All right, thanks, Luke.
Shall I go?
Yeah, go for it, Liam.
Yeah, well, I think the last 12 months has, for someone who's watching the blockchain space, has all been about NFTs. And I think that's just going to accelerate over the next year, to the point where it's going to be pretty much everywhere. And there'll be, it's a shame Darius isn't here to tell us a bit more about his NFTs. But yeah, I'm just expecting a lot more NFTs going out with physical goods.
Yeah, no, definitely.
I'll jump.
Eric?
So, I'm always a bit biased on the digital side, of course, being that's our business, but I think there's been a phenomenal acceleration and acceptance of everything digital. And we've felt that at Strax, we're experiencing it. And we think that I believe strongly that 2022 will continue that march forward where digital experiences, whether it's AR, VR, XR, NFTs, are getting more and more commoditized, which I think is a good thing, and scalable and easy to consume, and moving away from the novelty to an actual added value for me as a, again, fan, consumer, or student or beyond. And that is really our outlook between now and the end of the year, as making sure we're in all of those areas, which we are, and continuing to offer, what we feel is, and coaching our clients to offer content that has meaning as well as entertainment, and is beneficial and strengthens their communities. So we see these things forming more and more, and probably in a large way because of what we all experienced with COVID. This is one of the byproducts of, a different world perspective that we believe is not going anywhere. So that's our thoughts.
Thanks, Eric. And finally, Kristen.
Yeah, I mean, you've I don't know if anyone's scanned the can yet and looked at the prize that we're offering, which is our companion series case. So we launched that last year, and we worked with 24 other breweries and they all brewed with surplus bread. So we worked with people from Guinness to Beavertown to much smaller people like Bedlam. And so we want to do more of that this year. So if all UK beer was produced using just 10% surplus bread, we could halve bread waste. So we could halve the 20 million slices of bread that are wasted daily. So really pushing forward with that kind of side of our business this year. So we're working. Oh,
Kristen, I'm sorry. Would you like to work with a distillery? We could make whiskey from bread, I'm sure. Quite
awesome. Yes, we did. We distilled some beer that we had left thanks to COVID into a whiskey. Well, it was a whiskey type that was called, I can't remember what it's called, but we called it, it was a moonshine type whiskey. But yeah, definitely, let's have a chat about that. So yeah, we're working on our ingredients business this year to kind of increase our impact.
Brilliant. Excellent. Well, and it's good that we finished with a potential collab here with sort of toast-based spirit. I'm sure there'll be some interesting puns that someone can come up with around that. But just finally, thank you everybody for attending today, and the panel, especially to Luke, Eric, Liam, and Kristen. And please enter that competition. I will give you one more chance. I'll share this round on email afterwards, and we'll leave it open for a few days. You will get a copy of the recording of this and the full Digital in Drinks report, and also access to that dashboard where you can score your drinks company and see where you are on along with the sector. So it is time. So thank you everybody, and have an enjoyable afternoon or morning, depending on where you are.
Thanks, John. Bye, everyone.
Thanks, John.
Bye.